Hello everyone, I'm Itharve, I'm Twirl's community manager, and I'm going to be talking about scripting today. It's a topic that I could go in so much depth about, so hopefully I've put this in a nicely condensed session for everyone to be able to understand as clearly as possible, and I just hope this is super helpful for everyone watching, and you can take all of this knowledge home and really apply it to your day-to-day UGC. So, as I said before, I'm Twirl's community manager, but I'm also a UGC creator. I've been doing this for about 3 years, and I host a lot of these webinars. So, if you want to check out the other ones, they're all in Twirl's YouTube channel. And before we start with anything, if anyone doesn't know what Twirl is, we're basically a UGC platform. We match creators with brands. We have loads of jobs on there every single day, coming up with some of the biggest brands, which is super cool to say. If you haven't registered yet, then you can just scan the QR code. And I also have linked the UGC Diaries, which is essentially is a blog that I've written with everything I know about UGC, from scripting to contracts to scanning briefs. Literally everything you can think of UGC is on there, and it's for free. So if you ever need a little hand on anything specific, you can probably find it on there. Before we get started, I wanted to give a little bit of context on scripting. If essentially when you watch a really good UGC video, it feels really natural, to the point where you probably think someone just picked up their phone and started talking to the phone without thinking about it any deeper. But the reality is that if it feels unscripted, it probably is because it's very structured and the person actually put a lot of thought into their storytelling and the message that they wanted to put across, especially if it's UGC and it's selling a product. I divided it into 5 different stages, if you will. The first one is the hook. Everyone knows the hooks. We will dive deep into every one of these, but just for general context, this is what makes the person stop scrolling. So there has to be an immediate reason for the viewer to want to pay attention to you, especially with today's attention spans, which are very bad. So you have to give them something there, something that's going to draw them into the video, something that's going to tell them that this is for them. It has to be really quick. Then we have to orient them. Basically, the second stage would be telling the viewer that this video is for them and that they're in the right place, giving them something to reassure them that you are going to be helpful to them in some way, or bring them value, or bring them entertainment. But you have to bring them something to keep them watching beyond the hook. Everyone thinks about the hook and the first 2 seconds, but after that, you still have to retain the viewer. And kind of it links to the next point, which is sustaining that viewer. Because every single second counts. Every phrase that you put in your video has to bring something to the table, something new, something intriguing. It has to keep the people watching. If you just start repeating the same things as the hook, or just saying nothing new. And then a very, very important part for UGC to be effective is the proof. This would come after you've told them all the shebang. You need to prove them that what you're bringing to the table is actually legit. You have to show them, or tell them in a way that's for them believable. Because if not, they're just gonna think you're just talking. But that's not enough with UGC, because we're trying to sell products. So you will probably just have to prove that the product works. You have to show how nice it looks. Whatever the goal is, you're just going to have to do it at this stage of the video. And finally, the CTA. Everyone thinks it's super easy. Just tell them to shop now. It's not as easy as that. We will also be diving a bit deeper into the CTA, because there's different ways to do it depending on the reason why the video is being made in the first place. So yeah, you will have to tell them essentially how to act, what's the next steps for the viewer. So hopefully after this quick structure, for those that maybe have never done a script before or just starting, this always has to be there. But don't worry if it sounds like a lot. I'm going to break everything down in the next few slides. Before you start considering the things that I mentioned in the previous slide, you will need to decode the brief. I've already done a video about interpreting the brief and making the most of a brand brief. But it is very important that when you're scripting, you really find those key messages that the brand wants you to bring into the video. Because scripts can be very full of requirements, and it really feels like you need to squeeze everything in. But there's a right way to do it. So before I read anything, I want to understand one thing, and that is what needs to change for the person that's watching this video. So think the viewer is in one starting mindset when they start watching your video. they already believe something, they want something, or they struggle with something, ideally. So by the end of the video, you want to move them into something slightly different, and hopefully with that CTA, then that's when you make them act in a certain way. So I'm going to use this example throughout the whole presentation, but imagine we're talking about a moisturizer. The brief will tell you it's lightweight, hydrating, it's great under makeup, it's long lasting. So yeah, that's great. You could just say that straight up in the script, but that's not really going to do much, even though you've technically covered the brief. It doesn't really say anything interesting to the viewer. So what we have to do is, instead of saying that, maybe you have to talk to someone that's thinking, okay, my skin is very hydrated, I use a very good moisturizer, but then it leaves my skin greasy, or then my makeup doesn't look good. So then you have to tell them that not only that the makeup is moisturizing, but you have to tell them that it will leave you hydrated through the day. You can put products on top and it still looks good. You have to give them a bit more essence in there. Ideally, you want them in the mindset that this product will solve the problem that they've been struggling with, aka that their makeup doesn't look good on top of their hydration product that they're using. The script basically has to act as the bridge between both things. And the other thing you need to do before starting the script is that you need to really extract the key juices of the brief. And for this, I like to ask these questions, or just kind of put these as the pillars of the messages that I need to really have clear in my brain before I even start scripting. The first one would be who am I speaking to? And this could be either the person, more like the persona, so this could be like who they are in their day-to-day, their age, their gender, whatever. But I like to go a bit deeper than that, and it's what kind of person is struggling with the thing that I'm trying to solve, So maybe I'm talking to a busy mom that doesn't have time for makeup but still wants to look like she's glowing. That would be who you're talking to. Then there would be the shift, and is what we just spoke about, is the change of mindset. Like, what are you going to tell them? And then we have the one message that they should remember from the script. Sometimes when brands brief creators, they do say a lot in the brief, but try to narrow it down to one key thing that you want every viewer to go away with. It should be one single thing. The rest of the things can be supporting. Then the proof, we already spoke about that before. How are you going to prove that this is true? You're not just going to believe it if you just say it's hydrating. You have to tell them something more. So how are you going to make them believe this? And then next would be the CTA. How are you going to, what are you going to tell them to do next? So before you even start scripting, I would literally grab a paper and write these things. The first stage of scripting is the hook. How are you going to stop this person from actually scrolling? Because it's not easy. And some people think that the best hook is just the craziest, or you have to do something insane that really brings attention to people. But the real thing that you should be asking is, what is the most relevant way that this message is going to get to the right viewer? And the right viewer is also very important, because not every viewer is the one that you want watching your video. You don't need to appeal to everyone. You just need to appeal to that person that will struggle with that problem, that will need or would benefit from this product. And the hook is not separate from the script. It's basically the entry into the argument that you will later be presenting, so it can't just be random. It has to actually be really applicable to the product. And there's different structures there's different ways you can hook people, but I'm gonna outline 4 of my favorite ones here. The first one would be with the problem. So lead with the pain point. What is the viewer struggling with? Tell them that this video is for whoever is struggling with this specific pain point, and your product can solve that. The next one would be outcome. So lead with the results. This is how my makeup looks after I've applied this moisturizer. Somehow it looks better than with any other moisturizer. Or reframe it. Think about their problem in a different way and make them break their thought process in a way. So challenge the assumption that every very hydrating product makes your makeup look bad. You tell them, if you already have dry skin and a heavy moisturizer is not doing it for you, maybe I have the answer for you. You're telling them a little bit in an intriguing way that the thing that they're struggling with, maybe it's the wrong mindset that they're having. Or the other one would be to test it. For example, if we're talking about a moisturizer, I'm putting this to the test for 12 hours, see how my makeup looks at the end of the day. And then literally you're just showing them what they need to see and what they're looking for. So if you do this, then ideally you at least have the right person watching, because if it's not the right person, it's worthless. We don't care about that. And if you do have a good spoken hook, please make sure to pair it with a good visual and text hook, because people are watching in three ways. They care about what they're reading, they care about what they're listening, and they care about what they're watching. So if you can make it strong on the three fronts, then that's even better. Moving on to earning every second, because as we have been clearly mentioning throughout this, is that if you make it really good at the beginning, it's not enough if you don't keep it good throughout. So every single line in your scripts has to have a purpose, because if it doesn't, you're just gonna have viewers falling off. How do we do this? We have to give them a reason to stay. You could keep saying the same thing as the hook. You could keep saying it's lightweight, it's hydrating, it feels amazing, I love the packaging, but there's nothing. That's nothing new. So a really simple way to check retention is to look at each line and ask whether it's doing at least one of these three things. This is kind of like my test. The first one would be payoff. Have I answered anything I already set up in the hook, for example? So if my hook is, I wear this makeup for 12 hours, you need to give them something. Because if you don't give them anything, they're literally going to be like, oh, there's no point in watching. I'm not getting the result that I've been promised from the hook. Or delaying it purposefully just doesn't really work. So you have to find a reason to keep them engaged and maybe give them micro hints of how this is going to look without giving them everything. The next one would be to add. Maybe you can just list something newer that maybe the viewer doesn't genuinely know, and it could be interesting to them, maybe a detail, context, and explanation. And then the last one would be open. Does this line create the next reason to keep listening? So maybe I say, it felt much lighter than what I normally use, but I assumed that maybe it wouldn't be hydrating enough. So you're creating another micro hook, in the sense that now the viewer's going to be like, oh, okay, you said it was good, but was it actually not hydrating enough? And then they will keep watching because it's just opening new questions. I've made an example for everyone to kind of visually see how this looks. So for example, a flat body would be like, I love the moisturizer, it's lightweight, hydrating, it feels amazing. But the one that I would actually use that's a bit more valuable would be, I usually avoid rich moisturizer because they sit badly under my makeup. And then you would say, this one feels much lighter. What surprised me was how hydrated my skin felt after. Maybe you compare it with some good visuals of genuinely how good it looks, your makeup with the moisturizer underneath. Or you could, again, show them how it looks through the day. And of course, this comes with trying to say the things that you want to say without selling salesy. Because when you sound like an ad, likely is that people are gonna just keep scrolling. They don't wanna see that. And sometimes people think, oh, it just sounds addy because I'm too enthusiastic, or because I'm making loads of claims without really giving them a reason. And probably it's more the second. Because if you're giving them numerous claims, especially when you give them a lot of claims, then you need to prove that value. Again, it's kind of going to the end of the first slide that I showed you guys. If you say, this is amazing, it's lightweight, so convenient, it's made a huge difference. You just tell them it's made a difference. I'm going to be thinking what difference? Can you show me the difference? So the more we do with these claims, the more addy it sounds. So there's a few things that I find useful to make sure that we are making them, we're showing them the reason to believe. A really helpful one is to describe it. So instead of saying it's lightweight, you say it sinks in really quickly. You're telling them facts. You're not just telling them the quality. You're telling them objectively what it's doing for you. Or demonstrate it. I think that one speaks by itself. So don't just say it's easy to use. Show them the 3 steps that you did and how quickly you did it. For example, you can show them a timer, how I did this in under 10 minutes. And then you actually show them. Or give them context. It's really convenient. Okay, great. Love that it's convenient. But in what way is it convenient? For example, you could tell them, well, I only have to apply it once in a day, which means I can forget about hydration for the rest of the day. I don't have to carry the product with me. I just use it once in the day and I'm sorted. Or you could show them the change, for example, before and after. Or you could show them how your makeup looks with another product versus with the new product. So again, keeping it very value driven. If you're not showing them value, you're going to sound salesy because it sounds like you're making empty claims. And no one wants to see that when they're watching a UGC video. To be honest, I don't want to see that. And then the final one, which honestly, once you have the attention of the viewer and they've made it to the end, honestly, congratulations. It's not easy to do that. But that means you've made the message relevant enough for them and you've given them a reason to believe you and to stick to the end. So now you need to tell them what next, because obviously that's great. You told me about this amazing product, but what do I do now? What do I do with that information? And I think sometimes CTAs, so call to actions, they get treated as the easiest part of the script. You just put shop now, check it out in the website, and you don't give it any more thought, when in reality the CTA should feel like a natural conclusion to everything you've just said. So if it feels random or too aggressive, like not the correct way to do it, the CTA should always match the goal of the video. Because I think sometimes when we're doing UGC, we're just making scripts, but we don't think, what is the goal of this video? And I think with the CTA, this becomes really important, because it's not the same for the video to just want to introduce the product to the viewer for the first time, maybe organically, maybe on the Instagram of the brand, versus a video that's literally made for the viewer that's already seen the product 20 times to finally click on that shop button. The CTA is going to look completely different, because if you say shop now on an organic video that's going on a brand's page, it's going to sound completely random. It's not going to make any sense. I treat it in three different reasons why the video might be made, and depending on those, that's the CTA that we choose. So the first one would be consideration. This is when the goal is to simply help the viewer evaluate their situation, maybe think about their own problem, think about whether this is a product they might even want to consider in the first place, or maybe they've seen a few products but they don't know which one they might like. They're just kind of considering different options. So it's really about helping them understand, the product, their problem, and how your product can solve that problem. Then the CTA would look something more like, compare it here, or try a sample for free here, or find out more. It's a little bit more just inviting them to follow along in the journey, but without telling them to shop yet, because they're still considering things. So you're gonna inform them further. That's the goal. Then awareness is just completely different. If the brand is making this video for the top of funnel, which means that they just want to introduce this product to different people that have maybe never come across the brand before. They might have never come across this type of product before. So here, the goal is to get the viewer interested. If you spike their attention, that's enough. Telling them about a problem maybe they didn't even think they had. So here, you would be so light with the CTA. It would be something like, learn more, or I would really check it out. If you've never thought about trying a moisturizer that's with these characteristics, I honestly would consider it, especially if you have this type of skin. It's like changed my game. It literally is not even telling them to do much. And then we have the one that honestly I think a lot of UGC videos are made for, which is they're action or conversion driven, which essentially means that they want sales, and they want sales now. And usually the way that the marketers are using these videos is for people that probably have already seen many ads from this brand. Maybe it's people that already have been Googling this product. So they really already know that the product is something they might want to buy, and you're just giving them that extra push to actually take the action and buy the product. Turning existing interest into an actual action, essentially. And obviously the script has already been built around this, ideally, but the CTA is very explicit. It's basically telling them, shop now, sign up to the newsletter, download the book, get started. Very specific and very final action that the customer has to do in order for that to be a conversion, and that's that. And finally, obviously, I wanted to touch on this because I know a lot of creators use AI to script, and I just think there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. I think AI is a great tool. It does make things faster, but it can also really come back to bite you, because some AI scripts are terrible. So instead of doing the process on the left, which means that you copy the brief, put it in ChatGPT, copy the script, and film, don't do that, please. I would try to have a process of brainstorming with whatever AI chatbot you're using. So I would actually use it to do the things that we've talked about in this video. Use the AI to potentially help me extract that information from the brief. I would always check it in case it's missed something, but it is a good tool for decoding a brief. Or I would also use it to give me different options, maybe for brainstorming different hooks, but I would never just ask it to give me a hook. I would ask it to give me 10 different options of hooks with each a different strategy. So one of them would be problem, the other one would be demonstrate, the other one would be before and after. And then I compare and I would see which one I like the most. And then I would select personally myself which one's the one I like. And then I would use the AI potentially to put it back together, or just to structure it a little bit better in a way that's more cohesive or that makes more sense. But then I would always go back and personalize it with my own words. I would read it out loud, make sure it really sounds like me and no one else. And I just would never trust just an AI to write the script and deliver it the way it's done it, because especially now with so many creators using AI, all the scripts are sounding the same. AI uses very specific phrase structures, it uses very specific words. Honestly, obviously, a lot of buts, a lot of game change, I think it's past that now. I think creators have taught it that game changer is not the one to use. But yeah, it will still use very clicky words that just don't work and make your video look addy, which is exactly what we've talked about today. We don't want it to look or sound addy. So I would just use AI with a pinch of salt, great tool, just make sure it's just a tool and not actually producing the final results. And yeah, hopefully you can all take home loads of tips, and I hope they were actionable enough for you guys to go back and really apply them to your day-to-day scripting. Lovely day, everyone. Bye. Bye-bye.